Imagine the scene. It's a hot, sweaty night and you're trying to drift off to sleep. But the one thing that's stopping you is this high-pitched buzzing sound that's coming from somewhere in your bedroom. Now, you know from experience that that's a mosquito, but you know that you also are not going to be able to get it fast enough. So you do your best to ignore it and drift off to sleep. About 2 weeks later, you wake up with a headache, with chills, and then you get fevers. And these fevers seem to come and go about once every 2 days. You feel rubbish. But you count yourself as lucky because you know that you're going to live. A neighbour down the street had a kid that also had similar symptoms, but after a few days they slipped into coma and then they died. You both had a disease called malaria, and you know that many people in your community will also get this. Now, how was that connected to mosquito bite? It turns out that what happened was that when the mosquito landed on you and sucked your blood, it also spat something into your body. It spat in a single-celled eukaryotic parasite called Plasmodium falciparum. Now, what do I mean by a single-celled eukaryote? Single-celled, that means that its body is only made of one building block, whereas your body will be made of billions and billions. Eukaryotic, I mean it's a complex cell, so it's much more like the human body than it is like a bacteria. So why the 2-week delay between getting bitten and getting ill? The parasites avoid causing disease for a couple of weeks. They build up their numbers in the liver and then they burst out into the red blood cells of your blood, which is where they cause the disease. So how would this look? How can you get any idea of scale? Now, if you let me have an analogy, imagine a pear. Now this represents the parasite. Now imagine probably a red balloon, but a balloon representing your red blood cell. These are about to scale. To cause the disease and to grow and divide, the parasites have to get into your red blood cells. So they manage to wiggle through into the red blood cells without bursting them, which on its own is pretty impressive. They then grow and get fatter, and then divide into lots more parasites ready to burst out of your red blood cell. Something like one parasite divides to produce 20 more, so you end up with something that looks like a bunch of grapes, if we let the fruit analogy go further. So we have this, and after 2 days, the parasites have eaten everything you can in your red blood cell. They need to get out and find some more. How do they do this? They burst out of your red blood cell, hitting others nearby. There are about 20 blood cells that will be hit by these parasites. So although the first red blood cell being destroyed won't cause too much damage, the next 20 and 20 times 20 after that can make you feel really sick, which is where you get the symptoms of the disease. So I just described the battle between an individual human and the parasites that have invaded their body. Now, that's one battle. What does the war look like? The war is spread across most of the tropical regions of the world. It turns out that about half of the world's population are at risk of being bitten by an infected mosquito. And that's pretty bad. And if you do the stats across multiple countries, it seems that about 600,000 people die every single year from malaria. Now, most of these are caused by a species called Plasmodium falciparum, which mainly affects people in sub-Saharan Africa. And of these deaths, most of them, about 90%, are in children under the age of 5. So when you think about how this impacts a community, it's one of the key variables that means you're not going to get past your 5th birthday. And this burden of infectious disease, combined with other factors such as generally poor healthcare, means that countries where malaria is really common are locked into a cycle of disease and poverty. Now, if we can figure out how to kill these parasites and stop the disease being transmitted, maybe we can break that cycle and lead for better lives for these people. It's definitely worth figuring out how to break the chain of malaria.